technology. I am Danielle from the morning show on 91X. As always, I have my beer drinking partner in crime with me, Master Carl Strauss, Paul Segura.
Aloha!
And today we have Evan, co-owner and brewer of Green Cheek Brewing in Orange. What's going on, man?
Hi. Oh man, I totally didn't mute this correctly. I don't even know what to do. But anyway,
technology
that just happened. Hello.
If anybody's curious, Evan just got an email.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
You are all
good to see you, Evan. It's always a pleasure, man.
Oh, Paul, man.
Your smiling face. Oh, are we pouring beers already?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We're starting with the Unsolicited Advice and Unfiltered IPA. Before we get into this beer, how do you two know each other?
Well, he's always giving me unsolicited advice on how to make beer and how to judge beer and all sorts of beer-related things.
Yeah, Paul and I have we are fellow judges at the Great American Beer Festival. So we've been on those tables together a number of times, and then also we just kind of end up liking similar things. So whenever I get down to San Diego, which is not even that often, somehow I bump into Paul at like one of Lee Chase's places or a range of other things. So
well, what used to be Tornado, but or Hamilton's, or one of the better beer bars around town.
Totally.
Well, and that's actually how I discovered Green Cheek at one of our better beer bars here in San Diego. I was sitting at Small Bar, and the owner, Karen, was there, and I was just like, I don't know what I want. What do I want? What do I want? And she's just like, have you ever had Green Cheek? And I told her, I have no idea what you're talking about. And she said, trust me, I had a couple of your beers. I think she had 2 of your beers on her board, and I had both of them and was just instantly hooked. And since all this COVID stuff has happened, I've been noticing your cans popping up down here much more frequently than I did before. So I thought this was the perfect way for anybody who's in San Diego that doesn't know about Green Cheek Brewing to know all about you.
Nah, thank you. I love Karen at Small Bar. She's great. That place is amazing. I wish I could get down there more often.
It's just so far from Orange.
Really not that far. No.
Well, I think anybody who follows Evan's career and all the medals he's won are always interested when he leaves one brewery to kind of open a new one. When that new brewery opens, they all realize they've got to get beer from there because they know it's going to be good.
Wow.
Well, so now I need to know, where were you before you started Green Cheek?
I was at a brewery called Noble Ale Works as the brewer there for about 5 years, and then me and my business partner was the CEO at Noble. We started Green Cheek together, and we're 3 years in now, and so it's been super legit. It's been fun.
Noble is another fantastic brewery up there in Orange. That's another just really, really good one. Shall we start talking about Unsolicited Advice?
Yeah. Named after all of those moments that I don't know, maybe you're with your father-in-law or a range of other sort of situations where you're just sitting there going, yeah, okay, yeah, it's another one of those moments. And so anyway, this is kind of a tweener IPA where it's not milky, but it is hazy. We call it an unfiltered IPA. It's really modeled after the style of beers that Cellar Maker out of San Francisco has come really, I don't know, famous for, where they're it's an IPA made with a neutral yeast strain, and then we put unmalted wheat in there. We got some oats for some body, but then we are still targeting some good bitterness up front, and then we're dry hopping the hell out of it. And so this beer specifically, we've got Mosaic, and we've got Citra, and we've got Nelson. It's really fun to have a beer of this style where you get some of the elements of the like hazy IPA that I think people are attracted to, but then some of the drinkability that is somewhere towards the line of like more West Coast. You still have that neutral yeast strain, so that in hazy IPAs you have so much of that flavor from the yeast is just kind of, in some ways getting in the way in a good way, and in other ways getting in the way in a bad way, and so it doesn't always work together. And so instead, for this, just having the hop shine is pretty dope.
If somebody had told me before I looked at it and drank it to try to imagine a perfect cross between a hazy and a solid West Coast, this would be it. This meets all of those expectations.
Hell yeah.
It's got just enough of that body and a little bit of residual sweetness to kind of, hit half of that hazy, but then it's got enough dryness and fruitiness and bitterness to really kind of hit that West Coast mark as well. It's a perfect hybrid.
No,
yeah, dude, you slayed. I'm not the biggest hazy IPA fan. Like I can like have one or two, but really they upset, some of them upset my stomach. Or you get that like
I get heartburn.
Chalky. Yeah. But this, dude, you nailed it. It's all the great qualities of a hazy, but it's got that little bitter at the end that we love of our West Coast IPAs.
Totally.
I'm totally burping up hops right now. Yeah. I've had like two or three sips. I like this too because it's not a yeast bomb, and I think maybe that yeast is what maybe messes up your stomach or gives you heartburn.
Sure. I mean, the yeast, like the yeast that's holding on to that hop material and staying in suspension for hazy IPAs. That I feel like that's the thing that like ends up giving me the heartburn and upsetting my stomach as well. Like, cause like I can, depending on the beer, I can drink, anywhere from 1 to 3, but like, West Coast IPA for me, I could fully pound a fair amount of those and be in a pretty good spot.
So many of them. Tower 10 from Karl Strauss. Just give me all of them and I will sit there and I will pound Tower 10 after Tower 10.
Oh, yeah. Totally dope.
I love the hoppiness, the hop flavor and aroma from hazies. I really do. Yeah. I even like a little bit of that residual sweetness and the mouthfeel. And I wish we could get all of that in a beer that doesn't have all the yeast.
I mean, we put a lot of work for our hazy IPAs. We still use beer findings in those hazy IPAs in order to try to get some of that hop burn out of the beer and some of that residual sort of bite out of the beer. And I think that continues to work really well for us. But at the same time, like I'm 100% with you.
Before we go into our next beer, I've had a question about Green Cheek. Specifically, who is this little guy? I went into your tasting room. Oh, he's everywhere. And I love him.
Let's see. I don't know how this works. Where's my...
It's like a parrot.
Who is he? What's his story?
Well, so his name is Cheeky. He doesn't fly. We're not really sure why. We haven't really been able to dive into that part of the story yet. But that's why you see him sitting behind this little stand in this can. But he's an adventurer for sure. There's all sorts of examples of that. He's not much of an adventurer in this can. But anyway, the name comes from here in Orange. We have just a bunch of these green-cheeked parakeets. They go from LA to San Diego, and they're absolutely down on your guys' hood as well. There's about 5 different names for the same exact bird. And so, so like, all of these parakeets, these small parrots are getting down from in that whole area. And so where we are here in Orange, there's a dense population where Brian, my business partner, and I both live. And so as we started putting together this whole brewery, we got really excited about naming it after these loud, squawky birds that like are you know, I don't know, maybe quite kind of like resemble us, where I don't know, we're lunatics.
It works. Trust me, it works because I sat in your tasting room and I was looking at all of the different things that Cheeky is doing, who now I know his name. And me and my friend were just making up different stories. And now I'm glad to know that it wasn't completely out of the realm.
It's been, I mean, like I always wanted a mascot, you know, like I love the that little owl that Hitachi no Nest has, the Japanese brewery, and you know, you got like Mikkeller has Henry, and so many of these other breweries have this like little mascot, and it's like, you know, I don't want it quite to be like the Newmans, that's like shitty salad dressing, like where you know, they dress the guy up differently, you know, like every time, and I don't know, there's like a cultural appropriation to that isn't quite right. But anyway, I instead like a bit and really got really excited about this idea of just having this like, you know, this little symbol that wasn't quite just the name of the brewery.
I like it. I like it a lot.
I like it too.
We're going to get into our second beer, New Adventures, a Nitro Golden Milk Stout. All right, I haven't opened this yet. I haven't poured yet. What is the proper way to pour a Nitro beer out of a can? Is there a special way to do this?
Yeah. I prefer, so we don't have a widget in these cans. We dose it with liquid nitrogen as it's coming down the canning line. For me, I like to shake it up pretty well. The only
I feel like this is a prank.
The only fun part about this whole thing is like you're gonna want to have like your hand like over it a little bit because it's going to pop. But you'll notice as you're shaking it, it goes from like having a little bit of room in the can to not, and then once it's clear, then are fully pour down the side of the glass nice and fast.
Oh, this is one of those mind F's because it's not the color I was expecting.
And then so if you look at yours,
I might be mistaken, but I think Evan might be the original creator of like a golden stout. Right? Would I be correct in saying that?
I mean, I don't know everyone who's made everything, but I think I maybe did, but
What a diplomatic answer.
Okay, so I think he is, and I think going forward, the world needs to know that he's the creator, the inventor of like a golden stout at an aforementioned brewery.
So if you look at your beer,
I did not pour very well.
Versus this, you'll see that like that shaking up ends up getting like just super creamy.
Yeah.
Paul's looks super good too.
Damn it. I got scared.
It's okay. So I dreamt up this idea between a couple different sort of things where there was this coffee shop here in Orange County that I was really excited about years ago when I was at this previous brewery, and I called the coffee roasters Portola, and this cappuccino that they make was just so stupidly mind-blowing. And I got really excited about trying to figure out how to make this into a beer. And I knew a stout wasn't quite it, but I hadn't really quite put it together. A friend of mine, Jonathan Porter, who ended up opening a brewery called Smog City. He was at a brewery called Tustin Brewing before that. He came out with this blonde ale with Portola coffee in it. And I was really mind blown by just this idea of that, looking and smelling this beer and it tasting differently. But it was a blonde ale. And so I kind of just kept imagining like, how does this hit home further? And to me, in my palate, like I wanted milk sugar, and I wanted this, I wanted it to be on nitro. I wanted it to be insanely full. And so there's a range of different dextrinous malts that are used in this in order to create this really full mouthfeel, as well as that lactose milk sugar. And so,
So dextrinous malts, for those who don't know, are malts that have like high they're big polysaccharides, and as such, they don't get consumed by the yeast.
Going really simple on this one, Paul. Large
So-
polysaccharides. For the simple-minded here, let's just get. You just said dextrin, and you pull up polysaccharides.
Well, I think people
I'm
relate to
glad
that.
I'm glad you said something. So I was like, am I supposed to know what that is too?
Oh my god!
So they're very large sugars.
Right? Go ahead, Paul. Simplify it for me, please.
I'm trying to, so that the common person out there can understand that this beer has a lot of residual sugar in it. So it's got the lactose from the milk, like milk sugar is what he said. And it's got these large chain sugars that end up giving this beer body and sweetness in the finish. Which when you go to have like a coffee, right, you get that creamy mouthfeel and sweetness.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. This is your ultimate beer for breakfast. This tastes like breakfast in a glass. And I have two different things. Thing number one reminds me a little bit of bacon and eggs from Pizza Port, which is another phenomenal breakfast type beer.
Totally.
Thing number two, if you were to lay this in like whiskey barrels, would it then almost turn into like an Irish coffee?
Yeah, totally. I mean, the only problem with a beer like this is that it ends up being the perfect beer to sort of change in a negative way inside of a barrel, where the body would lighten up most likely, and then the beer would be maybe soured.
But what about the buzz, Evan? Evan, what about the buzz?
Irish car bomb. Come on, put a shot of JMO. Throw a shot of JMO in there, and boom.
Oh, I've done it. I've done that. Yeah, I've done. Shoot, what's the one of the dark like sort of chocolatey liqueurs that you can drop in a beer? I can't remember right now, but I've done all sorts of different versions of what that is on those bad nights.
And then it seems like you like to have fun when making beers.
No,
it's not just making beers. It's pretty much how he approaches life.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. Evan, I know that the tasting rooms are closed in Orange County because you guys couldn't follow the rules the same way that we couldn't follow the rules, apparently. So anybody who happens to be in Orange County, what is the best way to get beer from Green Cheek?
Yeah, we currently are doing a drive-through at both locations, and so we have a location. Our original is here in Orange. This is beer only. It's only our beer, and no pre-ordering necessary. Literally, just drive up like it's McDonald's or In-N-Out. No, like it's In-N-Out. Yeah, like something higher end. Yeah,
that's the California one.
And then for Costa Mesa, on the other hand, we do our own food, and so we have food to go. We also sell wine and other people's beer to go, and and then we are doing anywhere from 1 to 3 to 4 different beers in 4-packs a week, and so we are just really trying to get that that fun stuff going, and to where all of us are continuing to taste new things.
Keep your eye out for these cans around San Diego. Keep an eye out for Cheeky. Go bother Lee Chase over at Blind Lady Ale House. He carries them a lot, and if you continue to order them, he will continue to carry them. So if we need to bother Lee over at Blind Lady Ale House, if we all do it collectively.
If I could also say, it's on tap at Machete in Nashville.
Oh,
yes, I had some of Green Cheek beer last week, and I texted Evan and gave him a hard time.
Sorry,
that was perfect.
Where'd I go?
Oh no!
Hold on. Oh, I'm back.
There he is.
Yay.
Sorry, I got a phone call, even though I put it on silent. I don't know how things work. I'm sorry.
Technology. Evan from Green Cheek Beer Company, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to Paul and I and be on Beer for Breakfast. Like I said, I am such a fan of your beer, and now that I see that you're such a fun human being, it just makes it all that much better.
Oh, thank you.
Doesn't the beer always taste better when you know it comes from like cool people like this?
100%.
Dude, that Carl Strauss beer tasted that much better the moment I met Paul, where I was like, oh man, what is this?
Okay, before, but now. Thank you so much, Evan. And remember, Friday morning, we will do Beer for Breakfast with Paul and Marty on the morning show at 9:10. We will be drinking these beers. Hopefully, I can make the Nitro beer do what it's actually supposed to do. We'll see. I get scared. If you've missed any previous Beer for Breakfast, you can find those at 91x.com. Thank you so much, and cheers to independently owned craft beer and radio in California.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Stay
man.
healthy, brother.
91X.